Gianni Montanaro, and today I'll be presenting to you desalination. Is it a perfect solution to the world's water problems? So first, let's start talking about what is desalination. It's a process of obtaining fresh, potable water from brackish, salt, or seawater. There's two different types of ways of doing this, using membrane or thermal technologies. Membrane technology involves forcing salt water through a membrane at high pressure to separate out fresh from the salt. And thermal technologies involve evaporation and condensation, again, to separate out fresh water from the salt. So why is desalination attractive? Accessibility and availability worldwide is a growing problem. Right now, 1 billion people in the world lack clean drinking water, and 2.3 billion people are in an area defined by water shortages. Desalination of seawater or salty water as a way to alleviate some of these water security problems is very attractive because it uses a resource that is very accessible and available, salt water. So desalination worldwide. Reverse osmosis is the method most used worldwide to desalinate water, and it's used in 80% of plants because it's very cheap and energy efficient. The Middle East is the leader in desalination in the world and produces 50% of the world's desalinated water. So while technology is very attractive, there are some problems. One of the main problems is that it requires huge water withdrawals, and this could have negative impacts on organisms because it sucks them in and kills them. But perhaps an even bigger problem is the salty brine discharge, so the waste, as this can have very deleterious effects on receiving ecosystems, and also it's very expensive. 5 to 33% of plant costs go towards dealing with this waste. So there are various ways to deal with this waste product, the waste brine, but they each have their pros and cons. The most common method is disposal to surface water bodies, either inland or the sea, as it is the cheapest and the easiest. However, like I mentioned before, it can have very negative effects on receiving ecosystems, especially the fact that the brine is much more concentrating in salt than the receiving water body. The plume settles to the bottom of the receiving body, and it harms the biota there. Another method is evaporation ponds, which you can see there, and that's basically constructed ponds in which brine is put so that the water evaporates, leaving behind salt. This method is very easy to construct and operate. However, it's only economically feasible in areas that are very arid or that have very cheap land because it requires a lot of land. There's also problems with groundwater contamination, and the liner that you need to line the bottom is very expensive and hard to maintain sometimes. Land application is applying the brine to crops. However, not very many crops are salt tolerant. And again, there's problems with either groundwater or soil quality, with groundwater or soil quality. Sewer disposal consists of mixing the brine with either influent or effluent wastewater treatment plant water. If you mix it with the influent, it's because you want the plant to also treat the brine, but this depends on the wastewater treatment plant capacity, as well as effects of the brine interacting with the other waste. And if you mix it with the effluent, well, there might be problems with this. It's in order to dilute the brine before discharging it, but this is kind of controversial. Zero liquid deep well injection involves injecting the brine deep underground in aquifers, but there's problems of, first of all, it's expensive, and there might be problems of this interacting with groundwater that is used for human drinking. And the last method, zero liquid discharge, involves taking all the water out and having only a solid left, but this method is very complicated, expensive, and requires a lot of energy. So in conclusion, desalination is a very attractive option. However, looking a little deeper, we can see that there are some problems and some things that need to be considered, especially with regards to the waste. So it begs the question, is desalination feasible, or will it pose other problems? And I'd just like to thank Dr. Adamowski, Dr. Nagati, the TA, my primary reviewers. Those were my references. Thank you, and I'll be happy to receive any questions.